called today's talk, Each Thought is a New Beginning. Now, I thought I'd work with the Bible this year. I work with the regular traditional Bible a lot. And I'm not going to read big passages from the Bible. And this is not an intellectual pursuit of understanding the Bible. What we want to do is pass it along metaphysically. And the Bible as in metaphysics tells us that it takes us from unenlightened man at the beginning, all the way up through Jesus, which is considered the enlightened man in metaphysics. And so we look at that beginning, and the way I understand Adam and Eve is that here they are, invisible. That's where it starts. They're actually not in the flesh in the beginning. They're actually in the invisible. And then they have a thought about God and that's when we suddenly see in the Bible they're naked. They're aware that they're naked. They weren't aware of being naked before because they weren't in the flesh. They came into the flesh. They weighed themselves down with a thought of separation. Remember, this is not historical. This is not history. I want to be very clear here. The Bible, especially the Old Testament, is allegorical, and especially Genesis is so allegorical. But this is my understanding. Nobody explained it to me this way. This is what I got through prayer, meditation, and study, is that they did, because I thought, well, why is it suddenly they see that they're naked? And it's because they didn't have a body until they thought about God and then they weighed themselves down with this big thing that has all sorts of experiences. And then, so now, man is in experience. The flesh is in experience. Still battling the thought of duality, because the more fleshy I become, the more I believe in God and. The problem is, I'm starting to believe more in the and than I am the God. If you'll notice, this is more real to me than God is half the time. Because I can see this. Still don't know what it means, but at least I can see this. So this must be real. But then there's all this invisible. And it freaks me out. Because I don't know what to do with it. So there we have that creation story. So the new thoughts and new thoughts and new thoughts kept happening there through experience. And where I really wanted to focus today was on Noah, interestingly enough. Noah and the ark. And so I had to look at that metaphysically because, again, there are so many flood stories in history. Way before the Noah story was written, there was lots of other flood stories written about the earth having been flooded over. It's a great lesson to teach people, if you are thinking wrongly, you must wipe out the wrong thoughts. You must purge and cleanse. And what the ark means metaphysically is going into a place within yourself of the realization of your oneness. When the two, the animal's 2 by 2, but if you'll read in one passage, I think it's Genesis 7, I think it's in 7:2, that says that he was instructed, take 7 of the clean animals, male and female, and 7 of each, male and female, and 2 of the unclean animals. But up by chapter 15, verse 15, he's only taken 2 of each. It doesn't say why. But what those animals made, 2 and 2, are thoughts. And you're taking both positive and negative thoughts with you into this experience, because we don't have to fear them. We don't have to fear our thoughts. We just have to observe the results of them. And so the flood comes, Noah prepares the ark, which means he went inside. He went inside. And he took what he loved with him, his family. That allegorically, his family is what he loved. So he took what he loved with him into the ark. But then he took his thoughts with him into the ark, meaning that place of safety, that place of knowing. I guess that's a good way to put it. The place of knowing. And then the flood came. The flood of all that thinking. All of that being washed through him. His whole experience being washed through him. Have you ever been through an experience like that? When I did Vipassana, how many people here have done a 10-day Vipassana? Silent. It's something. It is an experience. I've done it twice. Vipassana. It's a Buddhist meditation. They up in Shelburne, Massachusetts. They have an ashram, you would call it, or a dharma, whatever it is. And I've done it twice, where you go in and for 10 hours and 45 minutes a day, you sit on a floor and meditate their way. And the agreement before going is that you will not kill any living thing. And so what's funny is when I've gone in early September, and they have inside rooms and they have tents and things. And I said, well, if you don't want me to kill anything, I've got to stay in an inside room. I don't care for the bugs. But I was clear on that. I know what my needs are. And I wasn't looking for Ritz-Carlton accommodations. I just wanted accommodations that would allow me to focus on the purpose there. But the commitment is no killing of any living thing, no sexual activity of any kind. You eat. Well, the first meal was at 6:30 in the morning, but that's after you got up at 4 for your first meditation, the first 2-hour meditation of the day, 4:30 to 6:30, and then you have your breakfast, such as it is, and then you go back into meditation in the big group and everything. At 11 o'clock is your last meal of the day, and it's lunch, and then afternoon meditation again, meditation, and at 5 o'clock is tea. If it's your first time, you can have a piece of fruit. But old students, as anybody who is there for the second time or longer, they prefer you just have your tea. And then you go to the evening meditation. And by 9 o'clock, it's lights out. And it is the hardest thing I've ever done in my life. It was as hard as quitting smoking. But I built an ark. And within that ark, I was flooded with thoughts. Everybody I've ever met in my entire life came to visit me in those 10 days. Miss Karabi from 3rd grade came to say hello. It's all in my head. I took a big cruise during that time. I went on vacation, sitting on the floor, meditating. And I remember one of those vacations I took, David and I rented a beautiful yacht in the vacation. We took about 8 friends of ours. And when I was kind of coming to during that, I thought, oh, it didn't happen. And I thought, wait a minute, do not rob yourself of that experience. It happened. I came to with a full memory of having done it. So how could I not have experienced that in that half an hour? And that's what I had to remember about a lot of things. And that love, in that washing away, is what got washed away was deprivation. And what stayed in that cleansing was love, was experience, was giving great gifts to myself. So I didn't have to rob myself by saying it didn't really happen. Who am I to say it didn't really happen? If time is not real, if there's no such thing as time, I went on a great cruise. We rented this amazing private yacht that we know about, and we had a great trip with our friends. And so you see, in that Noah experience, in that flood experience, nothing bad happened. I was just in a state of confusion and a state of extreme vision. When I did that, I saw things I didn't know I could ever see. I walked above the floor one day in the second year. And I remember as I was about to take the step, I was in a dream. As far as I know, I was having a dream. I was taking a nap, I know that. But I was next to my bed, and I went to step above the floor, and I heard the voice that said, "Don't doubt, or you won't be able to do it." And I stepped up, and I took a few steps above the floor, did a backward somersault. Thought, oh, I got to go call my friend and tell them about this. And then I woke up. I can't tell you what didn't happen. Who are we to say what happened and what didn't happen in our internal experience? In this Genesis experience, which means coming up out of. We are all coming up out of what we call God, but we could also say we're all coming up out of principle, out of law, and into experience. And so if we take the law with us in our conscious mind, on each new day, is kind of saying, new inspiration with each new day. This Genesis of experience. Genesis, beginning, that we came from the invisible and into the physical to have an experience. And one of our options is to hate it. That is certainly one of our options. Another option is to see it. See it for what it is, rather than describing it all the time. Rather than thinking I'm safer if I tell myself what this experience is, that this is good and this is bad and this is horrible and this is wonderful and this is fabulous, and that's a word I think that immediately needs to go away from our vocabulary, quite frankly, but that's just an opinion of mine. And so we in experience, if we did more rather than telling ourselves and all our friends what the experience meant, to do a more rather than this means this and this means this. I'm no safer if I define it. I am no safer if I define my good or my bad. I'm going to read a little something to you. From a lovely old Unity book called Let There Be Light. And it's focused on the Old Testament. And this part, Elizabeth Sand Turner is talking about Noah, interestingly enough. And it says, Noah was instructed to build an ark into which he and his wife and his 3 sons and their wives, together with 2 of every living creature, were to retire during the flood that was to cover the earth. And Charles Fillmore says, the ark represents a positive, saving state of consciousness, which agrees with or forms a covenant with the principle of being. This consciousness is built when we rest in God and seek to do God's will. Well, what is God's will for us?
To be happy, joyous.
To be happy, joyous, and free. Yeah, can you get on board with that? Really? Do we even believe it? Do you believe that God's will? God's not a person wanting this. God is a principle that lives in willingness. Can you get on board that God's will for you is to be happy, joyous, and free? Some of us would say, well, if that was really God's will, this wouldn't happen. That's not the truth. What it is this happened, now can you be happy, joyous, and free? What are you going to do? How are you going to turn this into love? Whatever this is, how are you going to turn it into love? I don't know, because I still have a few challenges. About 3 or 4. The practical lesson to be derived from Noah and the flood is that regardless of how destructive are the conditions surrounding us, if we are in tune with the Spirit of truth, indwelling, we shall be saved from the devastation that overwhelms those in negative states of mind. Do we hear that? If I'm in tune with truth, I will be saved from the destructive forces that happen when I'm in a negative state of mind. I'm not going to worry about them, you, in the negative state of mind. Let's talk about me, whether I'm in tune with what I know God to be or whether I'm in this negative state of mind. We are commanded to build an ark, that is, to abide in the realization of the one presence and one power. So, there's your ark, abiding in the spirit of the one presence and the one power. The idea is brought out in the 91st Psalm, where the promise is made to the one who dwells. 1,000 shall fall at thy side, and 10,000 at thy right hand, but it shall not come nigh thee. We should not be afraid when dread conditions appear. We can go into the ark that we have built with many declarations of truth, and there we shall be safe. The 40 days and the 40 nights in the flood story, that's just an indication of time. 40 is a time of completion in the Bible. There's lots of 40 days and lots of 40 nights in the Bible. And they all mean a time of completion, a time of process, a time of starting here and going all the way through the many, many, many experience. Jesus' wilderness experience was 40 days and 40 nights. What does that mean, he went into the wilderness? It means he went into no story is what it really means. He went into a place of complete unfamiliarity. Anybody who has quit smoking knows what it means to go into, you quit drinking, you quit drugging. You go into a place that is so unfamiliar. Because if you've always thought this way, and suddenly you have none of those tools to help you to think this way, now you're stuck out here not knowing what to think. And that's what happened in the ark. However, if you build your foundation in your ark, in your 12 steps, in your whatever, and you have this foundation, you're safe for the flood of thoughts, the flood of thinking, the flood of all that's going to wash through you. We're all safe because it doesn't matter. They're just thoughts. They're just thoughts. And I don't have to keep thinking it to make it true. I've asked myself on many occasions over the years, Shawn, is this what you want to be the truth? You know, when I'm having that argument in the car and nobody's there. I think, Shawn, is this what you want to be? This thing I'm telling myself, the argument I'm having with somebody, the proclamation I'm making to myself and the imaginary world. And it's like, is this what you want to be the truth? Do I want it to be true that anyone has any grievance towards me? Do I want that to be the truth? And then, no, I don't want that to be the truth. I'll still fight for it in my mind. And then I'll catch myself and say, okay, you got to stop. You just got to stop this thinking, Shawn, because it's not helping you towards the happy, joyous, and free. It's not aligning you with your will, with God's will. And God's will's got to be better, happy, joyous, and free, wouldn't you say? God's will has just got to be better than my victim. God's will has just got to be better than any thought I could have about this day, the weather, my past, my parents, my body, my money, anything. Aligning with God's will, happy, joyous, and free, has got to be better. Does anybody disagree? Okay. And so, if you all agree, then we're all on board here. Or is somebody afraid to raise their hand? What are we going to do, get into a match? I disagree. I think God's will stinks. Imagine.
It's also a question of what do I think is going to make me happy, joyous, and free?
God's will. But it's aligning with principle. It's getting understanding of the law. It's getting understanding of divine principle. And then aligning my mind with that. Even though it might feel awful at the time. The flood comes through me. But I'll be so uncomfortable if I do that. I will be so uncomfortable if I don't tell that person what I think of them. So I have to tell. David and I are in a situation right now where we really want to email somebody back. We really want to email somebody back and tell them what we think. But it will not align us with being happy, joyous, and free. It will not allow us to see the Christ in that other being, let alone ourselves. All it will do is we get the final word for now. Until they get the final word. Until that, and it's so, Genesis, a new beginning. Each thought is a new beginning. Each and every thought. We have new chances all day long. Every time you tell yourself you ought to be afraid about something today, ask yourself, really? Really should I be afraid here? Should I be afraid about this money issue? Should I be afraid about this time issue? Should I be afraid about this addiction issue? Should I be afraid about this relationship issue? Should I be afraid about God? Should I be afraid about the floor or the sky? Should I be afraid about anything? And if the answer is yes, then you've got to explore that. But if the answer is no, then you've got to interrupt the thought and say, okay, then I'm not gonna keep playing this thought out in my mind. And then in prayer, ask for a new thought. Spirit, I'd like a new thought. God, I'd like a new thought. However it is you pray, however it is you ask, whatever principle you ask from, I'd like a new thought, please. I want a true thought, and I'm willing and I'm ready to have it about this, or this, or this, or this, or this, or all of the above. So take a breath here. Let's give thanks now for this new beginning, for this new thought, and a new beginning that opens our mind, that opens our vision, that opens our hearing, that opens our body, that opens our work, that opens our money, that opens our play, that opens our relationships, that opens our mind. Let us give thanks for each new thought that aligns with the peace of God, the love of God, the joy of God, the wisdom of God, the presence of God, the power of God. Let us give thanks now, because there's always room for a new beginning. So it is. Amen.